All right, so as far as like the whole thing between Ruthless Records and Death Row, I mean when did that all like start you know getting when did that issue start getting a little bit more cleaned up, and because
Well,
you started working with Snoop Dogg, and
yeah, again,
did
when I
some
met
good
Snoop
things, yeah.
Dogg, it was in uh, right after 1990.
Hmm.
He came up to a studio, above the law studio in La Cienega and Centinela. Warren G brought him in because Warren G used to stay with us in
Hmm.
Kokane, California in 1990, all the way to the end of it.
Wow.
So when I met Snoop, his name was called Slim back then, and actually above the law, Code 187 was going to produce Slim's record, which his later name would be Snoop Dogg. He was going to produce his record, but he wasn't signed to Ruthless. So therefore, I was actually signed to Ruthless Records, and I needed to work on my album, which my album was on Epic Records. Eric was the first one to break a big deal with Poor Broken Lonely, Above the Law, and myself. One of the first one. Because of those dealings he did, he was a pattern for Master P, 50 Cent's Dre on how to
Yeah.
conduct business from an independent standpoint.
Mm.
But going back to what Eric had brought to the table is that he allowed everybody to eat. Even Dr. Dre, and if it was so bad to the point to where if Easy would have did anything wrong, why Dr. Dre never did sue him. So it was all kind of propaganda going on, but Eric didn't care because he was getting more money off those records because he still had Dr. Dre in the contract. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it got to the point to where they at that time, I understand they were riding and doing what they doing, but going back to the part when I met Snoop Dogg, he wasn't a Ruthless artist, so therefore they worked on my album at the end of 1990 going into 91. And when I was signed to Epic Records, they was like real scared of the name Kokane. So
Yeah.
they called me Who Am I?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you notice, like if they called me Who Am I during that time, Snoop was using the same thing when he went over to Death Row, because you can tell the fallout happened because at the same time it was a movie coming along called Deep Cover. Well, actually, I have a single on that cover, Nickel Slick Nigga,
Yeah.
and all the stuff that we have from Code 187 and this and that. It's like we felt and Easy felt that they took our whole essence, fooled the people at the time. And it was kind of lightweight like that from our style about balling, Code 187, Chronic, even calling myself Aftermath, later years calling they stuff, even back then, and Easy, they making lies about certain different things. Easy felt like, man, fuck them, fuck that bro. You know what I'm saying? We know what it is.
Yeah.
We know what it is at Death Row. So it was Ruthless against Death Row. And they didn't like us and we didn't like them at the time. So it was crazy during that whole 90 period, because after that, Easy had passed.
Yeah.
And I remember the last 2 weeks he had passed, it was me, Jada Pickett, Will Smith's wife, that's our homegirl. She was doing videos back then. And Code 187, we met on Sunset at the House of Blues. Eric was coughing. And it was right before we was finna do a video called California that's on the Above the Law video.
Mm-hmm.
So we got through doing that, and last thing Eric said is like, man, don't let nobody tell you what you can do. You dope. It was like his very, farewell. And then the next 2 weeks he was gone. So after that had happened, after Ruthless Records, it really like fell apart, in my opinion, once Eric Eazy-E passed.
Yeah.
And I just, it was one of those depressed periods to when that was our root, man, to our tree.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We went all around the world with Easy. I'm talking about some rock and roll shit, and for him to go, it was a dark period at that time. But, I listened to what he said and the stuff that was already put in my blood, and it helped me to stay resilient. 9 times out of 10, I would go to a session with E40, I would just sing, and they would be like, "We're using it, taking all these chances," like penitentiary chances. We're using that. Or then I go to a Too Short or something. You know what I'm saying? And then Too Short was like, "Nigga, that's pimp shit. Nothing but the hog in me." I was just crazy doing these hooks. And it just kept going and kept going and kept going. And one thing about me, I never did stay closed-minded. I never felt that I was too high on my horse to not come down to an independent level. So I don't care who it was. If it was at the top or the bottom, I was lacing everybody, at least hooks after hooks after hooks. So later on through the years, in 1999, Snoop Dogg had a label he started called Doghouse.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, we didn't know where we stood as far as him liking me or I like him. I mean, we was friends before. Don't get it twisted, before all this old shit happened between Ruthless and Death Row. Excuse me. But, you know, Snoop sent the message through a person I was working with, Big Trey D from the East Siders.
Yeah.
We was all working together before the Doghouse, and he sent the message through Half Dead. And he lived down the street from the studio we was recording in Upton, California. He lived in Claremont. It was near my city, Pomona. So, you know, me and Snoop met, and we squashed the funk. And the day we squashed the funk, it was on. We went to the Music Grinder. I met Goldie Lowe, Trey D, Meech Wells, you know, Mary Wells' son. And the first song we did was the dun 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 dun, oh ho, don't so I get. Man, it was magic, and it just felt right. It felt like we were friends before, and after all this shit transpired, you know, the best thing that we can have is learn how to forgive each other. So we forgave each other at that time, and it was just on. You know, that was when the Chronic 2001 that came around was about to come out, and everybody had made amends, you know, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, you threw sand at me, I threw sand at you. It's like, you get to the point where you got to grow up.
Yeah.
So being over there at Doghouse really ignited my career again. Yeah. You know, we did everything for the last meal. I didn't know Snoop was going to put me on 9 songs. He put me on 9 songs. I was only supposed to go over there and do 2 songs. But it fit so right, I ended up doing 60 songs over there. So we used something for Doggy's Angels, the East Siders, you know, Last Meal, Badass album. It was a real, I would say, like a Def Jam situation over there.
Nice.
You know, it was tight. And then the Chronic 2001 came out. I sing L.A. niggas. So from that, singing that L.A. niggas allowed me to go over there to New York and do shit with Puffy because they was on me. You know, back in 2001, I'm talking about, bam, it was only 2 people that they ever came to in the game that had it cracking, and that was Nate Dogg, rest in peace, and Kokane.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I was always like in the cut instead of in front of the camera. You know, I was on more records than them as opposed to singles.
Mm-hmm.
But all that happened, you know, what goes up can come down, you know, and that's what God knows. And during that time, you know, everybody was breaking up. You know, we had just got a deal over there at MCA. You know, actually Snoop Dogg did. But during that time, you know, he got a lot of money, but we didn't anticipate the company falling under bankruptcy, Chapter 11. So here I am again. We have an opportunity to do what we need to do, and I'm in a situation. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, you know, for whatever reason, Snoop was mad at me, and I was mad at him, and I felt like, you know, you ain't doing stuff right. We helped you build this, you know, and he had his other thing he was doing and saying, you know, and everybody was going through personal issues and different things, but I walked out of it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people said that he dropped me, but he didn't drop me. I walked out of it. I waited a year, gave him an inducement letter because he gave me $80,000 at that time. And at that point, I was supposed to get a lot more substantial amount of money. Everybody that was on the label. But I wasn't mad. Walked away. Bygones be bygones. You know, I don't knock Snoop Dogg for his hustle. Or none of that. Trey D, having the time, I don't want to speak too much, but the situation he got caught up in, you know, he's now out of. Big ups to my boy Aki. Salam alaikum to my brother. But it was one of them things, man, where it was like at the Doghouse, it was kind of like Miami championship team. It's like you never thought they lose and then LeBron James go back to Cleveland.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't thought that.
Right.
So it was one of them things, you know. But you know, learning from that experience, it's not a hate type of thing. You know, I actually praise God for the things that, you know, I went in the past I would say 10 years. Because sometimes the same things designed to hurt you is the same thing designed to help you. And it was at a time to when, you know, when I left Doghouse, I didn't have nothing. I mean, I had to go get my clean up myself. You know, I did some time in jail. And that last time I did in jail, fam, I was like, I just heard a voice from God. Like, I got to move from out of Cali. Now, you could never tell me I was going to move out of Cali.
Yeah.
I'm a Cali boy. You know what I'm saying? But it said move to Seattle. And I came up here and established some cool business with John Silver and G-Dub and them. For the most part, they've been very beneficial. I got to recognize that. And it allowed me to establish and rebound some things for my family. Because at the same time, besides this music, I have 8 kids by one woman, been with my girl for 30, and married for 25 years. So, you know, people call me Coca Huxtable around
That's
here.
awesome.
So it allowed me to get them straight. Because in this music industry, if you don't have a God or family orientated basis, you're going to set yourself up for failure. And we see a lot of our brothers do.
Yeah.
You know, you hear them at the top, but then at the same time, they dying over overdose, or they depressed, or they get themselves in trouble when they at the top, and then they kill somebody, or whatever reason. You know, one thing that helped Kokane turn it around was the simple fact that not so much I'm on all these records more in the history of the business, but so much throughout all this business, I still kept my family foundation. And that's the good thing about, you know, being an example in the game over 25 years, but don't have this narcissistic carnal attitude that most of these dudes do just because they get $5 in their pocket and they forget where they come from.
Yeah.
You know, God humbled me so that way when he puts seed in my hands, I'll be able to take the responsibility to know, I have to take the initiative to give. And I think God did that, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what he did for me in this music. Now I have a different outlook on how to run my business because I'm cohesive towards the spirit and the focus on what's going on. Now I'm more so like want to incorporate substance and testimony in the music because nowadays music really don't match the lifetime of what we going through in the struggle.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Exactly.